Let's get started, shall we, everyone? Today it was plenty of drama, and where you think the least about drama is where it happened today, right in the courtroom. Well, today the Department of State Services, the men of DSS today made attempt to rearrest Omoyele Sowore, the convener of Revolution Now, and that caused a bit of a drama. It was less than 24 hours after they released him from detention when DSS operatives attempted to arrest the two men at the premises of the Federal High Court, that is Sowore and Mr. Bakare, his co-defendant in the case at the premises of the Federal High Court in Abuja today. They met with stiff resistance from about an hour. Eventually, Mr. Sowore and Bakare were taken away in the vehicle of the lawyer, Mr. Femi Falana. Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka has again spoken about Sowore and his arrest. Well, there's been reactions. I'm perhaps one of the first set of people that have spoken about Sowore's the incident about him and the DSS today is Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka spoken again. 2 days ago, he did speak about it. Now he's speaking again. And this time around, he will send a strong message to President Muhammadu Buhari on what happened today. And this is some of the portion of the statement released by Professor Wole Soyinka. Let me read some of them to you. Professor Wole Soyinka says, and I quote, "I reiterate the nation's concern, indeed alarm about the escalating degradation of the judiciary through multiple means, of which disobedience of court orders is fast becoming the norm. May I remind this government that disobedience calls to disobedience, and that disobedience of the orders of the constitutional repository of the moral authority of arbitration, the judiciary, can only lead eventually to a people's disregard of the authority of other arms of civil society, a state of desperation that is known, recognized, and accepted as civil disobedience." Those are the words of Professor Wole Soyinka. You've seen some of the incident that happened there, some of the images that come from the court. Perhaps let me remind you about what has happened and how these all happened. This is a timeline of Soyinka's, I beg your pardon, Sowore's issue with the DSS. It started on the 3rd of August 2019 when it was first arrested during, before the staging of the Revolution Now protest, which was staged across some other parts of the country. It was detained for 48 hours without arraignment in court. But it all these went and it went on until December the 5th, when Sowore was finally released on bail, spending over 140 days. At some point, there was a request which was granted by the court to detain him for 45 days, and afterwards, he was released on the 5th of December 2019. That's about 145 days since he was detained. Less than 24 hours, there was an attempt to rearrest him. Let's make a sense of what this means altogether. I have joining me a former second vice president of the Nigerian Bar Association, a lawyer here in Lagos, Mr. Monday Obani. Thank you so much for coming tonight on the program.
How are you? Good evening.
And also from Abuja is Mr. Aliyu Lemu. He's a lawyer also and a public affairs analyst. Thank you so much, Mr. Lemu, for coming on tonight. Let me begin with you, Mr. Obani. First and foremost is there are several layers of the conversation that we're going to be having tonight. The first layer is what happened in court today, what some of you lawyers call the Temple of Justice, isn't it?
That's right.
What do you make of what happened, the incident, the scuffle that we saw today?
Well, I think it's clearly unacceptable, it's despicable. It's something that nobody should be very proud of as a citizen of this country. And for me as a lawyer, I felt totally enraged. and I felt alarmed. And it is clearly a discretion of the Temple of Justice. It didn't take place under the military, and it is least expected under democratic dispensation. I felt alarmed when I watched that video. You know that the place you cannot in any way come in and really do certain things that you want to do as a law enforcement agent is not the judiciary, not within the court premises, not within even the courtroom.
So are you saying that
took place
there,
within the
there
courtroom.
cannot be arrests within the court premises?
You can't do that. You wait for whoever you want to arrest outside the court premise.
But at some point, judges can throw people for contempt of court.
Yeah.
And say that they can be arrested straight from the courtroom, straight into.
Yeah, that is when you have committed an offense. I mean, a contempt, in the face of the court. The court can summarily deal with that individual. But that is the court. It is a court, not for a security agent to come into the court room while proceeding is going on in order to attempt to arrest an accused person. The story we heard is that the proceeding was still on, and there was this attempt. You could sue the scuffle inside the courtroom, not even outside the courtroom.
Does the law forbid it?
The law forbids it. It's clearly
you cannot make an arrest within the court.
Clearly unacceptable. It's not allowed. You wait for that individual outside the court premises in order to effect any arrest.
Is it a contempt of court?
It's clearly because that is an offense in the face of the court.
Okay, so because
and it's a desecration of the temple.
When we were growing up,
yes.
When two people were fighting, sometimes you perceive it as someone bullying the other,
yes.
or you perceive it as two people fighting.
That's right.
So they said it's two fighting. In fact, the police popularly say, okay, they're caught for two fighting.
And then you'll be charged. It's a criminal offense.
In that sense, if you say this is a contempt of court,
yes.
Who commits the contempt?
Well, you could see that there was an attempt to arrest a person that has already been charged before the court. I think that was proceeding. And he was granted a bail. I think he was released yesterday, and the proceeding was supposed to continue today. I think the issue of trial. So I don't know what will be the reason for the attempt to arrest this person that you have been in your custody for 140 days. You just mentioned it now. But let me say this. It is clearly wrong for us to use a method of detention or putting somebody in detention who has not been convicted of any crime. If a person is alleged to have committed a crime, what you do is to ensure that you present the evidence against that individual in order to convince the court that this person has committed this offense. And of course, that proof has to be beyond reasonable doubt. Now, this man has been in your detention for 140 days. You have not preferred any other charge. Now, you released him just yesterday, 24 hours later. You are now trying to rearrest him. And according to the information that you have new charges you want to now prefer against him. Then the issues, why were you keeping him all this while without preferring these additional charges? Why release him 24 hours, you now want to rearrest him again? Why are you trying to keep this person in an indefinite detention when the court has not pronounced him guilty? Mr.
Obani, let's bring in Mr. Lemu from Abuja studio. Mr. Lemu, before we lead us to break in a few words with your comment. And my question to you will be, can the DSS rearrest him after 24 hours? Can a fresh charge be leveled against him? Is that lawful? Is that morally right?
Well, the law and morality do not often meet. Sometimes they converge and sometimes they diverge. In this particular instance, yes, lawfully speaking, the DSS has the power to rearrest him legally. If there are other charges they intend to prefer against him, legally they have the power to rearrest him, but not to rearrest him within the precinct and hollow chambers of the court. It is a desecration of the hollow temple of justice. And just like the noble laureate Chief said, the disrespect for the rule of law will only breed civil disobedience, as can be seen by the resistance by the members of the bar who were in court and other citizens of Nigeria. They resisted the unlawful act of the DSS in trying to rearrest Mr. Sowore within the precincts of the court. Then coming back to the issue of morality, it is morally wrong. Like Mr. Obani has said, he has been in their detention for more than 140 days. Whatever charges they intended to file against him. 140 days is enough for them to have prepared those charges, taken them to court, and have him arraigned before the court during the interval.
All right,
So,
Mr.
legally
Lemu,
speaking,
so apologies. Let me butt in and we'll go on a break. There is a link where Professor Shoyinka is linking the president to this incident. I'm going to come back to you and ask you whether or not you can link the executive and the president to this matter. That's going to be our next conversation when we return from the break, everyone. We take some messages. Join us again. Thank you so much, everyone. We're able to show you some of the incident that played out in court today. Definitely, perhaps some of the most absurd incident and scenario that you ever see in a courtroom. Well, so as some are lawyers talking about, a lot of people who are conversant with the law, the processes in court. Mr. Monday Ubani, former second vice president of the NPA, has been talking to us, and as well as Mr. Aliyu Lemu from our Abuja studio. So let me come back to you before I come back to our Lagos studio. Mr. Lemu, Professor Wole Soyinka is sending a strong message to President Muhammadu Buhari on this. Can you link the president to what is happening, considering the fact that, in fact, what the professor, some of the things that he said, maybe one cannot say it on TV, but there's a strong message to saying that the president should caution the DSS.
President Muhammadu Buhari is the head of the executive arm of government. So the buck stops at his table. He takes responsibility for all the good deeds perpetrated by this government and its executive arm. The DSS is directly under the control of the executive arm of government. So by extension, whatever act the DSS carries out today will go back to the table of Mr. President. That is why what happens today is sad indeed, because it paints a bad image of the government of President Muhammadu Buhari, despite the good stride that is being made by this government. What happened today in court is indeed sad, shameful, and disgraceful, and a disservice to this government.
But Mr. Lemu, could you link any imprints or footprint of the president of the Muhammadu Buhari government to the incident that happened in court today? Would you say that is somewhat political?
Well, I won't go as far. I could not go, by my training as a lawyer, I need facts. I won't go as far as saying President Muhammadu directed the act that happened today in court. But the DSS, as an arm of the executive arm of government, which is directly under the control of President Muhammadu Buhari, by extension, whatever acts the DSS carries out today will definitely go back to the table of the Mr. President as the head of the executive arm of government. So when there is credit to be taken for any good act by the DSS, that credit goes back to the table of Mr. President. And when it is a bad deed, as in this case, by extension, it will go back to Mr. President. That is why I support the call by the Nobel laureate that the president, Mr. President, should call the DSS to order.
So, Mr. Lemu, before I come to Lagos, apologies, before I come to Lagos, so in this sense, for some of the critics of this government who says that rule of law has not been respected under this government, those are the views of some of the critics of this government. Would you say that today's event affirms such a position?
Clearly what happens today supports the notion that the rule of law is not being obeyed. We wish for an ideal scenario where the government will respect every and each order of court. For example, in Mr. Sowore's case, when the DSS wanted to detain him, they went to court and the court gave an order for his detention to be valid for only 45 days. At the end of that 45 days, they needed an extension which was subsequently withdrawn. So just as the court gave an order for his detention, once the court gives an order for his release, it should be respected. That gives the notion of the existence of rule of law and obedience to rule of law.
Let's come to Lagos, Mr. Lemu, with Mr. Ubani. Mr. Ubani, let's give this government a benefit of the doubt that maybe they're not aware of what DSS are doing. Maybe DSS is just operating as an independent security agent of government. If you were in President Muhammadu Buhari's shoes, right as we speak, what would you be doing if you see this kind of scenario playing out?
Yes, if I'm the president of the country and DSS throws my government into this embarrassment, it's a very big one at that, I would even remove the DSS, whoever is in charge of that particular body.
You think that this
That
incident today demands the sack of the DSS
exactly,
chief?
he should relieve him of his position. He has really clearly embarrassed this government. You see, we are living in a world that has become smaller by virtue of the fact that of technology and science, science and technology. What has taken place today is seen all over the world. It's reported all over the world, and Google doesn't forget. And it is not good for a country that is actually trying to come out of the economic, we are really in a very big economic problem, and we require the support of other nations in order for us to survive. And they look at your history. They look at what is going on in terms of respect to rule of law and even democratic credentials. You don't have it. And they begin to wonder what is going on. How can you do this? Remember the history of this case you have narrated. You went to court and got 45 days order of detention, and the court granted you. When the order expired, the court said release. You disobeyed that court order. You now arraign him, and then there was issue of a bail application that the court granted. The legal team went for variation of bail condition, which was granted, and the court certified that release this person. I'm okay with the sureties. You now say you cannot. The order was disobeyed. You say you want to now reassert the sureties and all these are things that you did contrary to law.
Mr. Obani.
And the woman gave 24 hours. You now obeyed and released yesterday, and today you are rearrested.
Maybe because of my job as a journalist.
Yes.
There is something that is sacrosanct, the truth.
Yes.
And we always stand by the truth. The matter of what happened today is condemnable.
That's right.
Like the incident that happened at the Temple of Justice.
I agree with you.
But could it be possible that the federal government or the DSS have some information of national security that we are not aware of, considering the position of this government, that issues of national security take precedence over the interests of a citizen?
Let's assume you have any further information that requires you to rearrest this individual that you have kept for 140 days. You could have done this in a more civilized manner that will really not attract the kind of condemnation that the act they perpetrated today will have attracted. Now, what you should have done, which is a normal thing, which we have said, is to wait for him outside and rearrest him. And of course, you know that it's not going to be logical because you have kept him in the first place for 140 days. And you were not able to prefer any other charge. And in any case, why are they running away from proving the ones they have already charged? You have charged him for treason, you have charged him for cyber stalking, you have charged him for cultism and all manner of charges. Why are you not interested in proving the ones you have charged?
So the options for Sowore now is it will be in detention as it is now, and possibly bail condition will also be pursued.
And then after which you get him out, and then they come with another arrest and say they have further charges against him, and forever you are keeping him in detention when you have not convicted him in accordance with the law. So it's something that we should all rise up. Today I felt violated as a lawyer. I felt violated as a citizen, and it's something that the president himself his attention should be called to. President Buhari attention be called to. The vice president, who is the senior advocate of Nigeria, a professor of law, Keyamos of this world, who is the senior advocate of Nigeria. We have so many senior advocates of Nigeria that are in this government, and they are lawyers. They should not be proud of what took place today. They should not be proud of it. They should condemn it and make sure that the right thing is done. Sowore should be released and let him face his trial. It's very important.
We need to close. Mr. Lemu, one sentence and we close. From you, one sentence and we're done.
I agree and I subscribe fully with what my colleague Barrister Obani has just said. What happened today is condemnable. The right to exercise the powers granted by the Constitution should be exercised with all manner of responsibility. With that, I rest my case.
Aliyu Lemu from our Abuja studio, lawyer, public affairs analyst. Monday Ubani here in Lagos, from the second vice president of the NBA, lawyer here in Lagos. Thank you so much, Mr. Ubani. Thank you so much. Well, that's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimale. Bye for now.